What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of Donkey Jaw Projects, coming in a little bit early, surprisingly. I never do that. It's always a little bit late. But today we're going to be talking about comedy and comics and all kinds of stuff. You know how we do. We kind of have a topic, but we also go all over the place. And today I have Mr. Chubb here of Mary Boys fame. How you doing, man?
Good, good. How are you, Marsh? Doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Let everybody know a little bit about yourself and where they can find you.
Um, I'm just a comic book creator. I go by the pseudonym of Chubb. I did a book called Mary Boys, like as you said, and I can be found on Twitter. Twitter handle is MaryBoys1. And from there, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel that doesn't really get updated that often, um, and a website, same thing. uh, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Nice. So yeah, I wanted to kind of get into uh, this comedy thing, but first, I guess let everybody know. I'd be curious to just kind of a little bit of a description of what your comic Mary Boys is about.
Sure, it's for teenage Knights Templar in the modern day. It's a very punk centric sort of comic. It's I'd say it's based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's the basic template, but it's very British. It's the humor is very British. It's a black comedy full of British references. They're basically four uh, kids with a birth defect that allows them to drink alcohol, but it makes them stronger and faster. So they're kind of superheroes, even though I don't really do superhero comics. And they are on a mission to clean up their town. They were raised by this old priest who, in a previous life, was a member of the Order of the Knights Templar back in the 13th century, and he gets these visions of foreboding doom. That'll there's going to be a biblical scale apocalypse in their small town unless they clean it up. It's full of social problems, and that is basically their core mission statement. That's the main motivation for the characters.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was thinking about this as after I was done reading it, and I'm like, this story's just getting started. Like you must have some more plans, coming up with this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the first two books, it's a complete story. But if you had to look at it
Yeah,
in
for sure.
terms of a TV series or a movie, when you do with character arcs, it would be the first act in a major character arc.
Okay.
So I've got two major character arcs planned. This would be the first act on the first one, but I'm not quite getting into the character arcs yet in the sense that the next book will be short stories, which kind of fleshes out the world some more and has a couple of has its own mini sort of resolution before we get into the main arc. So I don't want to get bogged down with too much world building. I find a lot of writers make that mistake. That's what I did with my first comic. I wanted to write this huge epic tale with a cast of thousands, as my first sort of attempt, and you get bogged down with that much plot and that much world all at the same time. Whereas with this comic book, I started very simply, and it gets progressively more complex as it goes on. But it's going to be a gradual descent into that level of complexity,
Yeah,
rather than.
it's interesting because I came to the book realizing this is going to be kind of a comedic thing. But yeah, you definitely set it up to where it's like, oh wow, like these kids have like superpowers basically to a certain extent, and there's something bigger going on here, which I thought was pretty neat. Um, Go ahead.
I deal with heavy topics, and you'll know as you've read the book. It's those are the sincere parts of the story, and and because they're so heavy, I find that the comedy is a bit of an antidote to the heaviness, so that people will digest things a little bit easier. It's kind of, a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down sort of approach.
Right.
It's like the American Werewolf in London. The gore scenes are horrific. Everything is quite visceral, but then you've got the comedy to add some levity and makes it all digestible. The two things, kind of horror and comedy, go together very well. Not that I'm necessarily doing horror, but it's dealing with things with a lot of gravity. So
Yeah. Well, there's definitely, within the origin of the boys, that's pretty horrific, to be honest. When I saw that, I'm like, whoa. But it's definitely, like you said, like the gravity. It definitely, kind of shows kind of the severity of the situation. I don't know. There's something to it that like you said, it kind of grounds you, and it's a good jumping off point for sure. For because you started off and you see these boys, like, doing, fighting and stuff, and it's like, it's the irreverent part that you talk about is there, and then you think about it. If you think about it like in real world terms, you're like, wow, what are these? Why are they doing this kind of stuff? And then you see kind of where they come from, and you're like, oh yeah, it makes a lot of sense, actually.
The intention was, at the beginning you'll think they're crazy, and by the end of the book you'll go, yeah, I'm on board. I'm kind of on their side, sort of. Somehow I find myself
Right.
buying a lot of this, and that's the idea. After
That's
you explain
cool.
it, after you take the reader by the hand and you lead them through with a bit of a chuckle to make sure you're okay. It's, I'm not, it's still a comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about, in general, humor in comics, and then I did want to also get into the writing side of it. And I think it's interesting because obviously you take inspiration from some things, and I think before we were here, we came on, we were talking about the fact that this kind of thing, you can't really bring it to a publisher these days. This is the type of thing that publishers stay far away from generally, unfortunately. And but I think of things like Mad Magazine, and other publications like that when I'm reading something like this, and they would go wherever they felt like, and you just kind of, and a lot of people loved it. So I'm glad to see people still doing this kind of thing, because sometimes it's tempting to really edit yourself for the culture, and I'm glad you're not doing that with this.
I think it's a misconception that people think that this is the zeitgeist, because there are, most people don't like the way things are. They don't believe things should be censored. I think I've got an audience. I've realized that I've got an audience that are very much into what I'm doing, and I'm writing for those people. So there isn't any adjustment required for them, and I really appreciate that. If I had gone to a publisher, and this has actually happened to me before, that's why I just didn't want to go with another US indie publisher, because they want, even if your comic book hasn't got any sort of agenda and you literally just want to do a black comedy like my previous book, they want you to put something in there, and it just undermines the whole thing. I mean, it's ultimately it's an artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, you don't make money out of indie comics, so it's basically you are pamphleteering for somebody else, spending 2 years on a book for no remuneration. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
At least you should have some sort of an artistic, some sort of sense of artistic achievement, even if you don't make any money out of your comic book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think crowdfunding is the way to go for anybody who wants to sincerely do their own stuff,
Yeah.
without any other fingers in the pies. Definitely.
And we should mention too, right here that this is still available on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
So there is a link in the description if you want to check out this comic. Definitely, I would suggest doing that. Um, and so, yeah, as far as I look at it. The first thing I thought actually, when I first saw the first images, online, was your art style kind of reminds me of Don Martin. Um,
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Well, Mad Magazine in general. I'm a
yeah,
big. It was one of my really early influences. I was glad that you mentioned that early on. Um, it's I'd say not direct. It was that frenetic sort of style of his, that stretch, plop, slop, slop, slop sort of uh, kind of. But I would say the main guy. I would say Jack Davis is my dude.
yeah.
For
Jack
inspiration.
Davis is amazing, and he's so versatile. He can go, very realistic, detailed, and he can go very cartoony at the same time. And his style tended to be a mix, really, of that,
Hmm.
which I always thought was interesting. Um, his work in EC Comics is, I guess, maybe what I'm more familiar with. But it's interesting. So that's cool that you take a lot of influence from him. And yeah, I love Mad Magazine and stuff like that. There's other things like, it's kind of funny, like this idea of like humor comics, like, because we get like comedy, like movies and stuff, comedies, and those are like like people are into them. It's one of the first things people go for generally when they want to go see a movie. A lot of people are into that. But I feel like in comics, it's kind of a funny thing because like I almost feel like, and this is a weird thing to say, but I almost feel like people don't take, if they know it's a comic that's a comedy, they don't take it like as seriously. They might not pick it up sometimes. Sometimes they're looking. I feel like there's a lot of like Batman readers who want that gritty, grimy thing or something, or and when they see something that's primarily comedy, I don't know. I feel like those don't kind of come out as much, which is kind of funny because there's a lot of history to comedy and comics. In fact, maybe right from the beginning, it really, it was almost more that.
Funny books.
Yeah,
Funny books.
exactly.
Says it all.
So,
Yeah.
have you noticed any resistance at all as far as kind of marketing? I mean, you had a successful campaign, so not that much resistance, but have you ever had any issues with people maybe not taking this seriously, or not wanting to pick it up because they'd want something different or whatever?
Not really. I think the way I pitched it was, this is with a lot of the promotional images and things, the angle isn't, it's apparent that it's comedy, but it's got you can see, you know it's always, I always made sure to keep it something in the background, showing that, okay, it isn't just straight comedy. It's not funny, ha ha, slap your knee sort of comedy. So not really, no. There isn't that much comedy in CG, books wise. I know Cecil's is obviously the big exception.
Mhm.
Let me think. Yeah, that's it. There aren't that many. People tend to take the serious route. I mean, and my my readership, I think, is primarily um, superhero comics readers.
Hmm.
Who might also know some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and who might also have read The Goon, which is also influenced by a lot of these EC artists, and has a similar sort of dark humor streak, you know,
Mhm.
to,
Yeah.
to what I'm. So yeah, it's I don't think I think everybody who got my comic is at least familiar with the Goon, and with that sort of thing, with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So no, not really. No, I think the biggest resistance has been to it not being in color. I should have done those covers in color. I think that would have made a big difference, because you know how automatically, if you don't see a cover that's in color, you flip past it because you think, low budget, low budget. And it's something I only really realized later on. when you start getting a bit of distance between yourself and your own project. You know, you don't look at it for a while, and then you see it somewhere on a message board, or you see it somewhere on somebody's promotional stream or something, and you go like, you know, I didn't look at my cover first. I looked at somebody else's, and then you analyze it, and you go, oh, it's because it didn't catch my eye because all the others were in color. So, yeah, I think so. Well, for the next one, the covers will be wraparound and in color. So,
okay.
from your mistakes. Yeah,
I have a feeling that wraparound thing is going to become a trend.
Yeah.
I noticed the Fatal, the Sweet
Cast. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a wraparound cover, which I'm looking forward to getting that one. And I think I noticed a lot of people commenting on that, and I'm like, I bet people are going to start doing wraparound covers more now.
It just gives you more real estate, you know. It's more bang for your buck. I kind of like it. The thing is, what I like about wraparound, what I'm doing with the current one, I've got the final pencils done for a main cover and a variant. And what's nice about it is if you do a wraparound, is you can tell a story. I kind of like doing, like, I don't just like doing images where people are just posing. You know, like when you see typically on an old X-Men book or something, it'll be Wolverine in the front with his claws out, and it'll be
Right.
Rogue looking sexy, and Gambit with his cards and stuff. And it's like, okay, but there's no story.
Right.
You know, it's a posing shot. I prefer having something that kind of tells you, it'll put elements into the actual thing, and it'll give you a bit of a look into, it'll give you a vignette into their world. It'll tell you a bit of a story, and with the wraparound, you just get more real estate to do that.
Yeah.
So looking forward to getting that done.
That's an interesting way to think about it, and it's interesting because you kind of need to tell like most of that story, I think, on the front part of it, but it's cool because you can open it up and it's almost like it gives you more, you know. So I don't know, that is an interesting way of thinking about it. I agree. I like I love old classic covers, and they always have a lot of story in them, actually, even to the point of having word balloons and stuff like that. So
yeah,
definitely agree with you there. So it's funny because you actually already talked a little bit about writing comedy, because it seems like you kind of infuse it into a greater story. But I'm curious, pertaining to comedy, but also, what is your method when it comes to writing a story? I'm always curious. Everybody's got different ways of going about it.
Well, firstly, with comedy, I just want to say it's just what comes more naturally to me, especially when dealing with heavy topics. It's just my personality. When something bad happens to me, I'll be the first one to tell a few dark jokes around it. Then I'll laugh and I'll cry a bit, and I'll laugh a bit more, tell a few more bad jokes. So it kind of just, I don't have a specific way of writing comedy. I think if I'd probably tackle any sort of story the same way. I'll turn something quite serious into a silly comedy somehow.
Well, comedy is really actually powerful, like I feel like a lot of us would do better if we did have a little more comedy in the things, even in just everyday talking and stuff. Like it really helps, like, almost grease the gears, and makes things not so awkward sometimes, or like you said, like a heavy topic. If you have a little bit of comedy in there, it'll help you.
It disarms a heavy topic.
Yeah,
exactly. It does. It really disarms. It makes people, this introducing a bit of levity makes everybody feel at ease.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sense of, you can overcome this, even though it's crazy. And that's I guess it's dark humor. Gallows humor, which is, I don't know. There seems to be a drive against having that sort of thing. You can't do it anymore because people just take it the wrong way. I think they've got a fundamental misunderstanding of where it's coming from. Yeah.
Well, yeah. People don't get jokes, or if they don't want to. It's the popular reaction to anything right now is to take offense to it. So it's like, how, not only that, but how can I find a way to take offense? Let's
make this about me. because that's the real driver. Let's make this about me. How can I make this about me? I know I've been victimized by this. I don't understand it, but there you go.
Well, I think it's a manipulative thing, if you can, paint yourself as a victim, then you can, try to get somebody to help you or something, or whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do. You can kind of create victimization around it, and unfortunately.
I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like in John Wayne's day, I mean, he was missing a lung from cancer. He never complained. He just was really macho about it. Clark Gable was also suffering from cancer. He never, it's a kind of, not specifically cancer, but the point is they wouldn't let bad things get them down. It wasn't a popular thing to complain about things. Yeah. Even when those things were really serious, which Clark Gable should have gone, shit, I might have cancer. I better go to the doctor. My dad was the same, that generation. I mean, he could, half his leg could be blown off and he'd still be like, yeah, it's just a flesh wound, I'll be fine till we get home, sort of thing. I think it's a previous generation's thing that has changed drastically. Now currently it's basically making the most out of what, if something happens to you, there's almost this culture of trying to capitalize on it as much as possible,
Right.
I'm not saying that the old generation were right, because I mean, machismo can also be an extremely bad thing. But it's why do we always have to deal with extremes? Why does it always have to be this or the other? Why can't we just be sensible?
Yeah,
that's all. Rhetorical questions about it.
Unfortunately, the pendulum doesn't usually hang out in the middle. It always likes to swing to all the sides. So, but So back on the writing thing, I did want to hear you get into a little bit of your writing process as well.
Writing, so how I would, let me try and think. I kind of imagine a series of scenes, and then I join the dots between those scenes. I kind of figure out where I want everybody to end. Then I will imagine. I'm very much an artist who writes, right? So I draw things that I write things that I want to draw, and I illustrate things. I illustrate scenes that I think would have a lot of impact, and I kind of build a story around there. It kind of just cakes around those things that I want. And I will divide. And what's hard for me, because I'm not such an experienced writer, is trying to devise ways of making everything work logically. Having everybody's motivations line up, the things that you stay true to character, that you build tension at the right, at the right points, and you resolve things when they're meant to be resolved. It's a roller coaster. It's just trying to get all those things lined up they can be extremely challenging. Sometimes they just happen by themselves. And if your characters are fleshed out well enough, you should be able to just follow them around and write down what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you like, that's like a really interesting way to write, actually. And I actually love asking that question specifically to comic book artists, because I know from my experience, it's the same thing. I don't approach, you kind of, as an artist, there's a lot of different interesting approaches, because you don't even have to write everything down. It depends on how you do it. Some people like to do that, but if you can see it in your mind, you almost just have to put a little reference, and then what you need to draw.
Yeah. What I do is, it's almost, I like to call it the Marvel method for one. Because I will start with I've got, like, I'm doing a series of short stories now involving my characters. I will have a flash theme. This is going to be the theme. This is how it ends. Then I will script it to get the key dialogue in there. But there will be a lot of things I haven't thought about during the course of the scripting that'll come out when I do. Then I do rudimentary thumbnails, and then all the visuals and visual cues will kick in and adjust the dialogue. So these two things synergize. and a lot of the visual gags will come out too. A lot of things you didn't think about when you're writing, because it's almost like you're engaging a different part of your brain. A different part of your brain is doing the writing for a change. So then you go back to the drawing board, make a slightly more complete script, and then you start doing more serious thumbnails. And then you start pacing everything properly to make sure that everything works. And that to me is the best method. That's the benefit of doing everything yourself, I guess. Otherwise, you could probably just sit with the person next to you and just pitch things constantly back and forth between thumbnailing and writing. But, practically speaking, that wouldn't really work.
Have you ever worked with a writer or an artist?
Mm-mm.
No, you've always done it all yourself. That's cool. Yeah, I love the kind of the what do they call it? The I don't know, like the one man kind of comic. I know there's a term for it and I can't think of it. But so that's really cool, and that's how I've approached it a lot myself. But I'm getting to the point I have too many ideas and I can't draw all of them,
Yeah,
so I'm starting to actually become a little bit more of a writer who will also draw some comics as well. But, I almost focusing more on writing these days. So, and it's fun. It's actually pretty interesting because, there is something to be said for the collaborative tradition of comics as well. And when I give something that I've written or a description of a character or something like that to another artist, it comes back to me, and it's like they come up with things that I wouldn't even have thought of, and they kind of add to the whole, kind of what the character is or whatever the scene is. They might add something that was even a better take than I even would have ever thought of, so. But the thing with when you're doing it yourself is you have that control, and you might have a vision of exactly how you want it. And it's really hard to, like, if you have a certain way you want it, it's hard to convey that a lot of times. You can convey it and you'll get, if you were to work with an artist, they'll come back to you and it'd be like, well, it's not quite what I was thinking. And you have to start making compromises. So it's definitely, it depends kind of where your vision is with the project and how strong you want to keep to exactly what you have in your head,
I think it depends on how personal the story is, because I mean, Mary Boys is intensely personal for me. So I couldn't imagine giving that to somebody else to participate in it, because they just don't have that sort of experience. They don't know where it comes from, to be able to build on it. But for something else, I mean, possibly it would be good to have that sort of synergy with another artist. It's almost like it's like a band. I mean, some records would never have been produced if it was only one person making that. You'd need those different personalities, working together on something, and you get a whole that is bigger than the sum of the parts. It's finding those people. And getting a good working relationship, because I've tried being in bands before, and there are loads of people who don't show up for practice, who want to do wildly different things to what you want to do, and those are always the pitfalls. And if you're a writer too, there's always the problem with, if you're going to be doing even if you're going to be doing a story that's going to be 100 pages long, if your artist drops out halfway through, then you've got a major problem. You have to start again from scratch, essentially, or that's the issue. You need somebody as dedicated as what you're going to be, and it goes beyond just the page rate. Like I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think I've got a bunch of stories that would probably be better illustrated by other people with different styles. I might do that one day, but for now, or one man band.
So how far along are you with whatever's coming next?
I've got the finished pencils for the cover, for the variant, for a pinup, and I want to do those. I want to paint those traditionally in acrylic paint. I was aiming for something that's going to be about 48, 54, maybe 60 pages, and I've got 30 pages thumbnailed out already. So it's coming along. So as soon as I guess what I did last time, I had 7 pages of fully illustrated work finished and lettered with the covers, and I launched at that point. So I might do the same this time around, or I might wait until I've got substantially the whole book finished, because writing a campaign I completely underestimated it. It just takes a lot of time and energy to do all the networking stuff. That to me is it's just something I don't normally do. I'm not a gregarious sort of person. I'm a bit of an introvert. It takes a lot of energy out of me, to talk. Some people, it just flows out of them. It comes naturally. I really envy that. But for me, putting myself out there, it's a bit more difficult. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us creators are that way, to varying degrees. And I know I'm definitely that way, but I've also done over 800 videos here on YouTube.
You're very, very prolific. I'm like, you're a very good example of building your audience. You're doing something very right. So.
Thanks. Well, the reason I mention that is like, I think people might be surprised sometimes if I say, well, yeah, I'm kind of introverted and stuff, which I definitely am. But after doing that many videos, you do get kind of a certain rhythm to it, and it's not as hard, and you start to, even like you said, I'm not really gregarious either, but you start to get more confident and more bold, and just having that much practice, that you just can't help but get a little bit better, but let's see. I forgot where I was going to go. Oh, you're talking about the Kickstarters. So was this because in this Kickstarter, I got these 2 books. Did you do only one Kickstarter for? Because I keep saying, I always say Kickstarter for some reason. The Indiegogo. Did you do one for each book, and I just missed that, or did you do them both at the same time, or?
I did it both at the same time. It's my first crowdfunder. The reason I did it like that is because I just wanted a complete story out from the get-go. Just from my own sort of perspective, if what happens is, you'll see a crowdfunder for somebody, and it will be part 1, and then you read the description. Okay, this is part 1 of 6 volumes, with no sort of guarantee that you're ever going to get the end of the story, that you're never going to have any sort of closure, and that kind of it kind of puts me off when I back a book. I'd rather have something that's at least it can be part of a larger character arc, but it must have some sort of conclusion for that particular volume. That's really important to me. If you're going to waiting a year for a cliffhanger situation, just isn't good. So
yeah, I would agree. I mean, even when I was growing up and reading the comics of my day at that time, I didn't even like waiting a month, for the next, cause you get such a small piece of the story in every issue, and it's just like, oh, I have to keep waiting another month and another month, and it's just the slowest way to experience a story in the world. So with the crowdfunders, you might have to wait another year or 2 years, like.
If you get your if you get the comic at all, they might not do another campaign. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, because artists come and go too. You'll see, if you're the writer and the driver behind a campaign, and your artist skips out after the first one, you're gonna have to find somebody who's who's going to be able to pick it up in the same way and not lose a lot of appeal. Because obviously it's a visual medium. A lot of the appeal in comics is your artist. That's all the flash bang. And a lot of people, after they see the flash bang is gone, and there's another artist on there, it doesn't appeal to them as strongly, you're going to hemorrhage supporters. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that so it's 2 comic books. I probably should have done it as one. It would have saved me a lot of money in printing, and just made things easier in general. But it's just because there's that very definitive break in the middle.
Hmm.
and it just lends itself really well to having two separate issues.
Yeah.
Um, and I
It's
had
kind
two covers done anyway, so I just thought, damn it, I want two covers. It was just something I really wanted to do.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's how you envisioned it, and I'm glad. Like the thing is, too, is we got all these Comicsgate things going on, um, and all the different campaigns, and a lot of them kind of take the same format, and they do the same thing format wise, and it's cool that once in a while to see somebody do something a little bit different, and I think even just doing that might be something that is actually helpful, because it stands out a little more.
That's the thing. It's almost like Bill Watterson when he said, listen, he doesn't understand why web comic artists still do 4-panel breakdowns for their web comics, because
Mhm.
they aren't limited by space like news, because they only had so much real estate for your comics in newspapers. So why do the 4-panel breakdown? What's the point of that? So you're free. You're not inhibited by publishers' specifications. You can do absolutely anything that you want. And I only chose the bigger format because that's our standard printing size for in the UK. So
Yeah.
it gives you a bit more room also to tell your story, with the art and whatever. But yeah.
Is there like comics in the UK? Is this a common size for British
Yeah.
comics, or? Oh, it is. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've only got the main publisher here is Rebellion, and they do 2000 AD and Judge Dredd,
Hmm.
and that's the standard size for those. They varied across. I mean, they used to be much bigger, actually, like big. In fact, in the 70s and 80s, there were these big square newsprint comics,
Oh,
just humongous in size. Now you don't get those anymore. So they've actually gotten smaller, but yeah, bigger is better on this side.
yeah. Well, I like it. I think it's interesting. Is this the same like kind of paper they tend to use too that you used? It's almost like a magazine. What we would have as a magazine in America
Yeah.
generally.
I was actually thinking of having it not newsprint, but having something that was uncoated.
Hmm.
The actual look I actually wanted to do was the old Mad magazines from the 1980s.
Hmm.
It's uncoated, but it really had this way of showing the good ink, the ink washes and the line art, etc. And I thought, I could do that, or I can go with your standard comic book stock nowadays, which is glossy paper.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, seeing as you're not doing a color cover, don't go disappointing anybody. We're doing something that's going to be too off-piste. So
Hmm.
I went for that. I might, who knows? Maybe for future editions, I might go for I might explore the uncoated paper route a bit more
Yeah.
and see if I can do anything with that. I'm just dead scared of making muddy images. That's always the danger. If it's uncoated, are you going to be getting a muddy image? I mean, if it's going to be crisp, clear line art, I find that if you look at like a lot of these old comics, the uncoated newsprint just has a way of mellowing out those harsh lines and makes everything really readable. If you find reprints of those old line art comics and they're done on very glossy paper, it's too sharp. It just doesn't really work as well. So you kind of have to take your illustration technique into account when choosing your paper stock. And I just thought I'd play it safe. This might work, it might not. So I just went for the glossy insides.
Cool. Well, it looks really good.
Yep.
And I think it does actually lend to the ink wash type of thing really well, because you can see like all the details and stuff of it. I feel like sometimes with other textures you might lose a little bit of the clarity, of it.
Mm.
Um, so interesting. Um, so as far as the Kickstarter goes, you said that there's a lot you weren't expecting. I'm curious because I'm especially curious on a selfish level, because I plan to do an Indiegogo.
I was going to ask you, why haven't you done
Probably
one
within,
yet? Because you got a lot of stuff together, and I thought, I thought you'd be compiling stuff to put out there for crowd.
yeah, yeah. I
So that's
was
the
even
plan.
thinking of possibly trying to get one in before the end of the year, but I don't think I'm going to now. I do plan. I'm in preparations with a few different projects to get a few, at least one off early next year, and hopefully more than one next year. Um, so I'm definitely going to start looking into how to do it well and stuff. What did you kind of learn in doing yours? I know it was the first time for you.
Well, the big thing is, and you're doing this very well, is build your own platform beforehand.
Mhm.
Make a lot of noise, give somebody, get people go, and you are very organized. You're setting yourself up very, very well for a successful crowdfunder. That's something I didn't do at all. I did a few. I thought I'd spend a few months building up my Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, but I didn't get traction. I just didn't have the tools to do it. And luckily, I got a lot of help from the community. Like, people started talking about it. They gave me. I got a lot of support, and
Mhm.
without that, yeah, I wouldn't have had nearly this. The success that I've experienced. So for the next one, I I basically, it's a cumulative thing. So you build on what you had previously. So I've got people who have now seen my work, who like it, just looking to expand that and service that customer base, and making. I just need to make more videos. I need to be looking at what you're doing, and try to do something not similar, but get myself more out there. That's the big thing. I think once you've got your because that's your marketing. Once you've got your marketing sorted out, I think everything else will fall in place, because everything else is, I can do everything else, but
Right,
that's not
right.
my bit.
Well, so what was your initial goal? Because I mean, it seems like you did pretty well, especially after the fact too. Like, I can't imagine that I'll get that much when I do mine, but it seems like you did pretty well.
Um, the initial goal was, I think, £2,500. I think it was a weird amount in dollars because of the conversion rate,
Right.
just 3,000 something. Next time I'll be setting it lower to take advantage of the algorithm.
Oh,
If
really?
you, yeah, because I think it's the sooner you get backed, or the most, or the higher percentage you are overfunded, the more likely the platform is to promote you and feature you on the front page. So
Oh, interesting. That's something
yeah.
good to know. So basically, see what you absolutely need, to make the thing, and then put it there, and then
Well, for guys like you and me, that's fine, because we write and draw everything, write,
Mhm.
draw, letter, what have you, everything. So there aren't going to be any expensive contractors whose costs you're going to have to cover. You know, that's what makes it so much harder if you're the writer, and you're going to be just employing an artist. It's going to it's so you're going to have to play it completely differently. You're going to have a bare minimum to cover their expenses. Um,
Right.
so
Well, that's probably the ones that I first start off with will be ones I'm just writing, or I'll be doing more than just writing, but I probably will have other pencilers for the Indiegogos that I'm doing. But I will be also working on the art too, maybe inking or coloring or whatever it is that I need to do. So,
mhm, mhm.
um, but yeah, no, that's interesting. What else? Was there anything like? Did you get any specific boosts? Like, were you able to get on some big channels or anything, or
Yeah, I'd say the biggest boost was definitely Ethan Van Sciver's channel.
Hmm.
Um, you know, he did a great job in promoting Mary Boys. I'm really, really happy he did that. Apart from him, there were a few. Yeah, there were loads. I just did the rounds from Pillar to Post, on everybody's show. And yeah, it's that's the core marketing strategy.
Right.
But it will be good to be a bit more. I mean, it's great to be able to go into other people's shows, but at the end of the day, the big, the mantra is grab an all, and build your own sort of network that you service from time to time, and your fans will know how to find you. I think it'll be a bit easier now that I've got people who are familiar with me and my work,
Mm-hmm.
to get more people on board. But starting out, it's hard, and if you can get a leg up from from somebody, then yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good for you. You were able to get on that show and stuff. So so do you have a YouTube channel? Because you mentioned
I,
doing
yeah,
videos.
I do. It's only got 45 subscribers, so I need to add more content. The only stuff that's on there right now is my video for my Indiegogo, where I just with my monotone delivery, I just talk through the plot of the book, so it isn't very interesting, and just talking about stuff that I'm selling, like T-shirts and stuff. But I need to get a format, and I need to start chatting, start connecting on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would recommend it. But it's not necessarily for everybody, and you don't have to do that. But it is a helpful tool, and yeah. Well, I'd look forward to checking out some of your videos for sure. What's the what's your channel called?
Right, let's see. I think if you go to, let me just see. I think there's a, let me look at this without shutting down. Just bear with me. I'm going to sound like a real idiot now, but I'm not really sure what the name is.
That's
Because
all right. I'm trying to find it myself here. Let's see if I can find it.
I think I have to go onto YouTube, and then from YouTube I have to look. It says your channel. I think it's just a series of numbers flung together, like an
Right.
alphabet soup, sort of. I think after you've got 100 subscribers, you can actually get a name or a URL.
Right.
But,
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. Some of the ways that you kind of have to build up to certain things on YouTube, unfortunately.
I think the best way to find it is just to go to the Indiegogo and look at the video, because the featured video
Right.
is that'll be the channel.
That's true. That is a good point. I'm there now because I'm looking for it because I want to link it in the description so that we can get you some more subscribers. So everybody, I will have that very shortly. I did find it.
Cheers.
Let's see. So you mentioned that your the next story you're going to be doing it's going to be a series of stories, the next book.
Yeah, it's going to be a collection of shorts, and it will culminate at the end of the collection. You set up a bunch of ties that you tie up at the end of it, so it'll be like a mini arc. But it's going to be like I don't know. I liken it to an album of punk songs. So because I believe that character is the main driver behind any sort of story, and plot is incidental. Plot's only there to stimulate characters. So it'll be something like that. It's almost like, okay, imagine a collection of spirit stories, like Will Eisner, that sort of thing. That's what I'll be aiming for, something to that effect.
All obviously pertaining to Merry Boys, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's all. I'll be married to Merry Boys for the next 5 or 6 books, I reckon.
Nice.
I've got too much material. It'll be my thing for quite a while, I think.
Awesome. All right. Well, the link is now in the description, so everybody go to his channel and subscribe, and let's see if we can help him out for his next campaign when it comes around.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And check out his book as well, of course, as we've said already. So what was kind of like the inspiration to Merry Boys, as far as like I know obviously you were talking about like Mad Magazine and stuff, but as far as the actual story, delving into religion and kind of going like kind of taking the putting the take you did with it, I
Mhm.
don't know, where did that kind of come from?
Well, it's my own look. It hinges on my own personal sort of beliefs to a degree. I mean, I'm a conservative, and it's kind of, I hate it when like, well, I've been reading comics basically all my life, and they all come from some sort of left wing perspective, right?
Hmm.
And I think what makes this comic really different is it's got different political, it's got left and right wing politics in there, and they kind of gel together, as you would see in real life. It doesn't try and sell you one particular viewpoint, you know. And it was influenced by life events to a large degree, and the characters themselves come from. You would have received a link to this book. This was a comic that I did in 2012 called Sparker. Sorry, my camera is really bad. I should have plugged in my better camera. But this was published by Slave Labor Graphics in 2012. And there was a Templar character in there that came out in the wash. We'll see him in the front there, Harry.
Hmm.
And there was an extra page that had to be filled up, to make up the page count. So I said, what will I draw? And they said, well, anything that you can think of, just fill up that page. And I thought, okay, so I imagined the character Harry as he would have been in his youth when he was living in the town that he came from, and I kind of imagined it would be like the Ninja Turtles, that he would have three brothers, etc. So I did this just this pinup, like the first drawing of them back then,
Oh, that's cool.
and the idea just kind of stuck in the back of my mind, and it wouldn't go away, and it just kind of just built and built until eventually I thought, okay, I got to do something with this. I got to bring it to life.
Yeah,
So
that's really cool. A lot of my ideas come from some similar kind of things where, you might be just sketching in a sketchbook and you're like, oh, this character's kind of fun to draw or something like that, and then you just make something out of it.
fun to draw is a big factor. I think Mike Mignola also said that there's nothing worse than doing a comic with a character you don't like to draw, because you keep having to draw them over and over. That's why his whole thing is he likes drawing big monsters. So he thought, let the main character be a big monster that I wouldn't mind drawing over and over and over again. You
Right.
know, that was my approach.
Yeah. Whenever I start thinking about an idea, or even working with another artist on an idea, I'll always ask them, what kind of thing would you like to draw? Because I can make a story about whatever, like, So, and same with me. I think about what I actually like drawing this, and for me, I know that I want some sort of action in whatever I'm making. I like action. I like that kind of thing. I like monsters, like Mike Magnolia said, and it definitely those kind of considerations are there. Are you familiar with Boondock Saint? Because Saint
Yeah,
is
yeah,
asking
it's
kind of
yeah,
like that.
yeah, Matt, yeah. Funnily enough, that kind of only they don't kill people. I guess that's the big difference with the Boondock Saints. The Boondock Saints was cool because it was action, it was comedy, and it also had those epic sort of moments, those really high religious sort of experiences, offset by weird comedy spats. So I guess the comparable, yeah.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with Boondock Saints. I know of it, but I haven't read it. Or isn't it a cartoon
No,
or
no, it's a 90s movie about two Catholic brothers who
okay.
decide to clean up, basically just to uh, kill gangsters. So it's got this hard sort of Catholic sort of edge, and
Interesting.
they basically just wanted to eradicate sin, in a similar sort of way to my character. So I can see the connection, definitely.
Yeah, interesting. So apparently Magnola did a play sketch at a con, when he came up with Hellboy. So that's interesting. I didn't know that's where it came from. I thought, I don't know, I didn't really know what I thought, but I know that when it came out, it was different than everything else, and I think that's why it caught a lot of our attention, and also it was amazing, as far,
Yeah,
especially visually.
always doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
But the illustration style, I mean, it's very that's what he does so well. That's what I really. He takes something that's very familiar, like it's Jack Kirby's style, mixed with H.P. Lovecraft, meets German expressionism, and the German expressionism is the wild card. The Kirby and the Kirby is very familiar. The Lovecraft is acquired, and then you got the wild, and then you got the wild card of the expressionism, and it all just gels together. So you start from a point of familiarity and you build on that. That's what I don't know. That's why I think it's popular. It just makes you feel at home, but it gives you a sense of adventure at the same time.
Yeah, I've been enjoying his Twitter actually, because he's always putting art up there, and he's always kind of experimenting, and I think that's cool.
He did a Swamp Thing recently, which I kind of liked. I really love Swamp Thing.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So I'm curious too to hear a little bit about your artistic development. Like, have you pretty much been drawing all your life?
Yeah, like most people. Yeah, I'm not a trained artist. I'm just a hobbyist. So everything that I've done, it's just been more recent. I mean, I've always sketched, I've always doodled to some level. At some point, probably about 7 years ago, I started really making a concerted effort to improve, learning value studies, learning, improving anatomy, composition, color theory, all that stuff. Just really saying, okay, what would I have learned if I'd gone and studied this? And every now and again, I do I try and level up. Like I did one quite recently after I finished Merry Boys. I went back into just rehashing everything that I'd learned before, just doing loads of exercises and things, just trying to improve, just on a constant mission of trying to get better and trying to do something. I mean, my main influences have been comic book related, like as we've already discussed. The old EC comics have been fundamental to me, like Jack Davis, Wally Wood, and Will Eisner too. Will Eisner also from a big storytelling perspective. You kind of with him, it's a case of the line between a writer and artist gets blurred because they're so simpatico. He just does it so incredibly well. He's been a major inspiration for what I do. Yeah, that's it.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I noticed in the pages that I feel like you have a really cool sense, like you said, composition. Like I can definitely see that as a strength in your panels, especially. And you get at the moment very well too. Like I just feel like there's all these little moments, spread throughout it, that it's just like very, it's just good storytelling, and I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it. I just have a kind of an ancillary question that I think is funny is all the beer cans, they have the TYSK, the tisk or something. Like, what is there a reason behind that, or?
Yeah, it's steeped in. That's the thing. It's steeped in British references. This comic, and I made a concerted effort to not make it so steeped in references that nobody's actually going to enjoy the comic book. But they're still there, and it's a shortened form of a name of a popular beer here called Tiskia, which is actually a Polish lager. It's cheap and cheerful. You can buy it at most shops and off licenses. And you'll see these cans, strewn everywhere. It's not the same name, but it's similar. It's white and red composition. So people in the UK will go, "Ah ha ha, he means Tiskia," without doing any product placement. Until I might, yeah, it would be cool to get a sponsorship from Tiskia though. That would be great.
I wonder if there would be any copyright issues or anything. I would hope not, but I think it would be cool maybe in one of your campaigns to kind of incorporate that somehow. Maybe have beer can stickers, or maybe you could even have like some kind of container or a cup that has it or something, some kind of piece of merch or something. It might be kind of fun.
I was thinking of coasters actually.
Coasters would be great. That's perfect.
Because they're lightweight. Shipping abroad isn't an issue, like with textiles and things like that. So yeah, that would. It's all about keeping it on brand, because I mean, my comic has got this sort of street punk sort of vibe going. So the stuff that I mean, they're not on the campaign anymore. They're all sold out. But I used to have patches. Let's see. I can show you what I did. Yeah. So I did these embroidered patches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that punk vibe going with that. I like that.
That's it. So beer coasters, because they drink beer, obviously it makes sense, and t-shirts and things. Yeah, it's just on brand. It just kind of makes sense. Everything ties together.
Do you guys in the UK, do you use beer cozies? Because that could be another one.
Oh, right. Yeah, I haven't thought of that at all. To be honest.
I'd love to have a Mary Boys beer cozy. I'd use it.
Okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'll put it in the box and see where it goes. It's mostly about how you can fold it and how easily you can ship it, how you can manufacture it. Because I mean, like I did t-shirts.
Kind of come flat a lot of times when you buy them. They come flat, so that would be kind of perfect, and they're lightweight.
Alrighty, okay. I'll consider that. I'll definitely consider that because I found that just on the side, it's like I really wanted to do t-shirts. To me, I really want to do, and the best way to do t-shirts in this day and age is for it to be print on demand, so that it can be shipped from wherever you are in the world, so it keeps the costs down. Weight. I mean, international shipping of clothing material is a bit of a nightmare because there are certain, for some reason, postage couriers and things, they've got a higher rate for that. I'm not sure what the reason is for it, but it always works out a lot more expensive than you anticipated, because everything would fit into a large letter, but you can't ship it as a large letter. Mm-hmm. So I specifically wanted like just a very basic sort of t-shirt that it would be like a punk t-shirt that you would find in the 80s. So it's 2 colors and printed with silk screen. So it'll have a very specific sort of look. The print will be the thick, gummy sort of stuff that you used to get, back in the day. So I was hell-bent. I've got to do this. I really just so that I can fill up my own cupboard full of Mary Boys t-shirts, and it works. And a lot of people have gotten it, but I just realized, this is. It's just a whole lot more, work than would have been if I just gone the easy route. I don't know. So we'll see. Maybe do it differently next time.
Yeah, well, that's the things you learn, I guess.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions here. This one I think is interesting. How do you convey comedy in nonverbal comics? Is it the act of conveying good facial expressions? By M Designs.
It's about pacing and timing. It's about how you set up the surprise in non-verbal. Yeah. Think about. I mean, I'm thinking the one who best did that would be guys like Sergio Aragonés.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Magazine. Yeah. Everything was non-verbal. I think it was one of the first comics I read as a kid. Actually, one of his Mad as a Hatter. It was Mad as a Hatter. One of his collections, where it's all about. If he does a single panel, it's just it's the situational stuff. You can see what's coming. You can you use familiar tropes, and you pepper the image with that, so you can set up a situation. And if you're dealing with multiple panels, it's all about timing. It's all about creating expectation and seeing and surprising the reader as to how it's going to go.
Yeah, Yeah, surprise is. I actually asked a webcomic creator a long time ago, how do you like make jokes? How is there a way to write a joke? And what even is a joke? Like, because it's kind of, if you really try to think about it, you're like, well, why is something funny? Like, it's not as obvious. Like, you have a sense for it. You might tell a joke, and know how to do that. But then if you actually think about it, it's like, well, how would I go about creating that? And I think you're right. Like, there's an element of surprise and irony, generally, in a
Mm.
joke. And yeah, setting it up, I like how you're talking about with that too. It's like you set up a rhythm and then you kind of disturb the rhythm at some
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
you know
Exactly.
um,
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
and I agree, Sergio Aragones is a great reference point, especially for doing it nonverbal, because one of his things that he's always talked about is, and he does it non-verbally too sometimes, is he is intrigued by like pantomime, and that physical expression, and being able to bring that humor, kind of the physicality of the humor, and not, it doesn't even have to be words. And he's really good at it. So I would, read some Gru comics and study, you know
Yeah.
or read some Mad Magazine, whatever it is. He's all over the place in those. I love that guy. He's like, he's one of my favorite creators for sure. And I love how fast he works,
Very
and
prolific. Very, very, very. Yeah.
so prolific. And like, it amazes me because how fast he is, because it's not like he shirks away from detail, like,
Yeah.
if you read a Gru comic, there are so many figures, there's so much detail on most pages, and I'm like, how does he do it? Like, it's crazy.
He uses the fact that he's doing something that's it's he doesn't do anything that's it's not he doesn't deal with realism. So he shoots from the hip,
Hmm.
and he's a proper cartoonist. He creates it's just impressions that you know um but still that still doesn't explain how he's so bloody fast. Just getting those lines are perfect. They're just there's so much, there's so trying to explain to somebody how powerful a good line is when executed correctly, and he's just amazing, absolutely
Yeah, have
amazing.
you ever seen, I've seen these videos where they have him like up on a, he's projecting his art on a screen, and they're like, they give him like a prompt, and he makes some kind of
Right there. Yeah,
comedic thing, and it's always like hilarious. Like,
right
it's
there, right, and
ridiculous.
then in real time he just does it, and it looks just like what you'll find in the magazine. I'm like mind blown.
Hmm. I guess part of that is that's what happens when you've been doing it as long as he's been doing it too, because he's been around forever. So
That's part of it. That's why I don't think we'll ever get guys, who are as good as the old 1950s cartoonists, because if you have a proclivity for art these days, you're not going to end up in those professions that will require you to draw things day in, day out. You might go into animation, you might go into advertising, you might go into anything but comic books and cartooning, especially like newspaper cartooning. That's essentially dead now.
mm,
If you've got any notion to start and support a family, then you'll be well advised to steer clear of any of this stuff. you know
yeah.
like I've got a day job, obviously, like most people do. Very few people can do this full time. The big goal, as I think you've also said on your videos, yes, we've got the same sort of goal, would be to do this professionally,
Mhm.
and figuring out a way. They say that it is kind of like another way that it isn't breaking into the comic book industry anymore. It is creating your own place in the comic buying market. That's all. Be your own publisher is the way it's going.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. That's actually better than relying on a publisher.
I definitely think you're right. Actually, we were talking about Sweetcast before. Like, he had a video just yesterday about that, and I think it's totally true. Like, you kind of have to pave your own way, and I think it's actually very possible. It's actually the thing that's interesting is we tend to think about comics, as something that's hard to make a living at. But when it comes down to it, it's IPs, and getting that out there to as many people as you can, especially people who would like whatever it is you're creating. Like, say just even for instance, Marriott Boys, anybody who's into Mad Magazine, anybody who likes beer, anybody, like there's a lot of, which a lot of people do, like there's a lot of ways, like you just take different elements, the religious aspect, like people who like dark humor or that kind of thing, like, or people who, there's a lot of people who are into like the history of like the Knights Templar or something, or all that kind of stuff. Like just find all those kind of people and present them with the comic, in interesting ways that maybe they'd relate to, and you'd be surprised, how big it could get. It takes a lot of legwork, for sure. But I think that, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more potential that hasn't even been tapped yet, like a ton more potential that hasn't been tapped yet, from comic creators, because we tend to just, we want to make the thing and we're into the craft of it, and anything beyond that is like a lot of work and hard to do. So it's hard for us to think of all these angles and then pursue all these angles, but I think I think it's more than possible, for any of us to actually make a career out of it. I mean, Disney did it. He didn't start with $1 million. A lot of people have done some amazing things just using IPs and being creative.
Well, I don't know. Very good example. There wasn't a comic book industry to break into back then. It was do your own thing. It literally was that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Wild West, but it's great. It's with social media and stuff, you are free. You're free to fail, and you're free to succeed, which is
Absolutely.
awesome. And there's also other markets out there. I mean, people tend to think of the comic book reading market as the US and the UK, the English, but I mean, there's a huge market in Europe. The Franco-Belgian market is huge. Yeah. In just comic sales, it's about €500 million. Right?
I mean, if we could find a way to tap into the Japanese market, any of us would be, pretty well off, because they actually are doing well.
They're doing well everywhere. They're doing absolutely what they're killing it. Absolutely. When people are saying the comic book industry is fine and you can stop being so alarmist, they mean there's a lot of manga being sold, right. whereas Marvel and DC aren't doing as well.
Exactly.
That's what's happening.
So speaking about selling comics in different regions, we got this question from Mutt. Does Mary Boys sell more in UK or US?
US. It's about, I think it's about 70% US backers, and the rest it's mostly UK for the rest of it. I've got some European and a few, but mostly those, about 69% US, 25% UK.
Well, I guess probably population-wise, it must be a bigger market anyways, right? I don't really know the population of the UK, but I feel like it's got to be smaller.
Yeah. It's also just culturally, I guess. I think with the whole CG thing, it's located because that's my network, and that's it's something that started in the US. So people who watch CG related content will mostly be there. There's quite a few people in the UK as well, but it's not the motherland is the US. So that's where it's at. And I think everybody should be looking to expand outward, not just limited to that, but
how was your experience with shipping, overseas and stuff? I know that's a big headache.
We're very lucky in the sense that we don't pay as much international shipping as you guys do. I've seen some of the USPS rates going to the UK, and it is astronomical. So it isn't that bad comparatively. It's much cheaper domestically, to when somebody backs in the UK, it's quite cheap to get them the comic out, and quite quickly too. So that's fine. In Europe, the same. Europe is actually quite cheap. But yeah, like the thing is the market has been the US. A lot of people have asked me, so why don't you print the comics in the US and distribute from there? But then you'll have to have somebody on the ground, do your packing and labeling and deal with customer services from that side. And I'm a very sort of DIY kind of guy, I like to deal with everything myself and make sure, like, if there is a problem with an order or something, I tend to get on it immediately. I want people to be, I treat people the same way I'd like to be treated,
Yeah.
And if you hand it over to somebody else, you don't know if that's what's going to happen. You just don't. It might be, because I don't have, comparatively, I don't have that many people who read my comic. So, every single person who reads it, I want to keep them. I want them to, to stick with me for the long run.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be a better way actually to do things from this side is, even if, because I know I'm going to have some, well, I would assume I'm going to have some UK buyers. And I wonder if it would be good to, like, I could get everything ready, package everything up, and then send a box of boxes to a friend in the UK, and then maybe they could, ship it. Maybe it'd be cheaper that way. I don't know.
I could do that for you if you want. Send it my way. I'll be happy to drop it off at the post office for you if you want.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I wasn't asking, I didn't
Offers
mean
open. Offers open.
I appreciate that.
No big deal. But yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Bulk shipping and then distributing would that would be another way, but I haven't looked into that. For my first campaign, I just wanted things to work. I kept things rather basic. I kept the tiers quite basic, and I'm glad I did, because it's like the butterfly effect. You've got something extremely basic that becomes extremely complicated very quickly. Just by its very nature. I don't know, like, you get the bigger campaigns have got insanely sort of complex tiers and things, and I've trouble understanding how things work, and I can imagine how things just get compounded as the campaign comes on. Things get added and taken away. I'm
the same way. Like, this whole thing of a lot of these campaigns where they're like, if we get to this tier, we'll add 10 pages to the story. I'm like, don't you already have your story planned out? Like, like, how are you going to just add? I could see, like, maybe, okay, I'll make like 5 of the pages splash pages, and then, maybe, or
I mean, it depends on the format. If it's short stories, yeah, you just add another short story that you were maybe saving for the next book, for example. You could do that. But yeah, for a traditional story with beginning, middle, end, I don't see how you could do that effectively.
And to me, it's like, I don't necessarily want to add more work. Like, I actually would love, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but I would love to have the comic already done before I get the, do the Indiegogo, as far as just the actual work of creating the comic. But because I don't want to get in that trap where, people, I say we're going to do this comic, and then a year later people are still waiting. I don't want to get to that.
I recommend, I mean, this is also something I've been struggling with. Like I said, it's a lot once you get thrown into that pit, and your schedule for doing appearances on people's shows starts stacking up, and you find yourself writing copy for outlets, for people who are willing to, do a promotion for you on their websites. It eats up so much time. And answering questions, getting a lot of emails from people who want to know more about what you're doing and stuff, that it just eats up your time, especially if you've got the day job going. So the best way to do it would be getting it pretty much 99% done.
Yeah.
Or have stuff that doesn't rely on you anymore. If you're going to be if you're giving the whole book to a colorist, have at least your stuff done,
right?
And then it's just the colorist part, because then at least you're not duplicating time. I mean, while the guy's busy with the coloring, you can still be doing your promotion. The book can be on in demand,
Absolutely.
So yeah, but completely. I can totally imagine, and I'm sure this is actually what happens in practice. Why you see so many delayed projects is you'll get somebody who gets just a little bit of the work done, and then they get completely bogged down with promotion, and then they're constantly chasing the carrot. They want to make more sales. They want to, increase their backer number. So they find their attention divided between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
weird
agree.
because you can destroy confidence like that from your backers. Is he ever going to finish the first campaign before starting another one? Especially, and also what another thing that people don't seem to realize is that during the course of your campaign, you are marketing yourself as an artist. New opportunities to do pinups for people, covers for people, all sorts of things are going to come out of that. And those people aren't going to wait till the end of your campaign for you to do that work, and you're not going to want to turn it down.
Right.
So set yourself up that you can, take on an extra bit of work while you're still running that campaign, and get, and take advantage of that. Do pinups for people and stuff. But that's important.
That's interesting. That is an aspect I haven't thought of. So that's pretty cool. We got another question here. Rat 10 Glory, are you planning on sticking with black and white, or will you see a full color version of Merry Boys? Love the grayscale. Just curious.
I was thinking, well, for this one, I was playing around with doing color splashes within a story, or maybe doing one story completely in color. It depends on the story. If you find a story that you really want to embellish, that has elements in there that will look really good in color, then yeah. So I'm thinking of doing a few splashes in color. So the whole book will essentially be printed in color, but rendered in black and white. Full CMYK, not just K. So yeah, it'll maybe in future. I will do more color stuff, but for right now, just trying to get the stories out. I want to stick to black and white for the most part.
Yeah. Do you, as far as what you like to see in comics, do you generally prefer black and white, or?
I prefer black and white, actually. Most, if you look at my bookshelf, my comic shelf, it's mostly black and white comics, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. I've always had this weird thing where I didn't think I liked black and white, and I never wanted my comics to be in black and white. Even though I think all of them are, except for one so far, because it's so much more work to do color. But I have then, Walking Dead came out, and I was reading it, and I didn't even think that it was in black and white. It just wasn't even some. He's like, I don't see color, like, but like it's like it wasn't even a factor, and I'm like, why do I care? And then I read manga sometimes, and I don't even think about the fact that it's. I mean, I don't need Akira to be in black and white. It's still an amazing book, like. And so I'm like, why do I care? Ninja Turtles black and white. Like, so many comics are in black and white, and I'm like, that's maybe that's not such a big deal.
but there's an aesthetic too. If you're reading a black and white comic, that you're doing something dangerous. It kind of takes you into a different kind of realm. That okay, it's like when you're watching a low budget sort of movie. Okay, this hasn't got a huge budget, but they can take you places where a full color movie would not have taken you. Kind of, like those early Ninja Turtle comics. Well, actually, most of the I think, Mirage. Most of the entire run was black and white. Anyway.
But, it's almost like a punk aesthetic or something. Yeah. I like that you brought kind of that in, where it's like almost like a dangerousness or something, or a roughness, but it's a cool aesthetic, for sure. Stinch is asking, Karl, will you expand the IP of Merry Boys to other media if you get the chance, or stick with the comics medium?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't see Merry Boys being on lunch tins anytime soon. Or a Saturday morning cartoon show for them. It's kind of, it's the sensibilities are very underground. So I can't see if it had to happen. I mean, I could almost imagine. I mean, have you seen This Is England, the TV series and the movie?
I haven't.
It's like it's kind of like a, like it's about the mods and the skinheads and the punks and stuff from
Oh,
the
okay.
80s, and it's quite rough around the edges. I could imagine a TV series, something based on that. That would work quite well for Merry Boys. I would kind of like, yeah, I'd actually go for something like that. Yeah.
Russ is saying Mary Boy's beer. Totally. You got to get connected with like a micro brewery or something. See if they can make that happen. That'd be cool. That'd be hard to ship, but it would be cool.
That's the only thing. That's the only problem. Yeah, I've done a little bit of microbrewing. Just, with your kit and stuff that you do in the kitchen. You make a mess.
Oh, really?
Whatever.
I've never tried that, but I like microbrews and IPAs and stuff.
It's fun. It's fun to do. But yeah, it becomes a thing of its own very quickly. So
Yeah.
short-lived.
Well, I would assume like if you were to do like a beer thing, it would be like working out a deal with a company who already does that, and it wouldn't even be like something that you connect to a Indiegogo. It'd be like, this is the Mary Boys beer. You can get it at different stores, and it's cool.
Yeah, like a lot of metal bands have done that. Like Iron Maiden, the Trooper beer, that's quite popular. And I think it's probably the most famous example of that. But a lot of bands have done that. They've released their own sort of brand of beer. So it'd be something like that. But I think that'd also be like your bigger IPs. So for what will be in for the brewery will know that, okay, if we stick this label on the front, people will recognize what it is, and they'll buy our beer. So
it almost makes me want to make a comic that has to do with beer, because I'd love to explore that. Because honestly, I mean, a lot of times I get different IPAs and I try different stuff out, and you can tell like they're getting, they're hiring a lot of different indie artists, to put some pretty cool stuff on there. So I don't know. It might be more possible than I might originally have expected. We have Margarita. Speaking of alcohol, Margarita. I'm not even gonna try. Saying, hello, gentlemen. Do you guys offer a one-on-one guidance on starting a comic? I have some great ideas, but don't know where to start. Are video chats available? Huh. Well, I'll say, probably most people don't do a one-on-one thing. Maybe some people would be willing to, but I'll say, join the Discord. If you go all the way to the bottom of the description, there's a link for all my links, and the Discord is one of them, the AAA Creators Discord, and we have audio chats all the time, on there, and we talk comics constantly. So, and there's even a section on there for Ask Marshall, but you could ask everybody, because everybody has got some cool advice about that kind of stuff. I'm definitely willing to help if there's any way I can. But I'd be curious, Chubb, what would be your kind of advice to starting, a comic?
Generally, well, make a comic about stuff that you really like, not about what you think would be popular. I'd say that's the most important piece of advice I could possibly give anybody. Do something that not about something that you think will sell, but just something that you feel like, I've got to tell the story no matter what. I've got to do this. That's what it was like for me. So that's important. And the other thing is, look at comics in the mainstream and set that as your benchmark. Your comic has got to be at least as good as that, writing and art-wise. After you've got those things nailed down, that's your core, that's your foundation. After that, things will be a lot easier. But without,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, without that, everything will fall apart. So, and then you have to resolve all the problems that come with trying to get something going. But that's the most important stuff.
Well, I think that's a great point, and it's funny because I never bring that kind of point up too often because I'm always the way I approach it is, just make a comic. It doesn't matter if it's good or not, but there's two different levels here that we're kind of talking about. So like when I say that, I'm talking about, you need to start learning how to do this thing, and so make some mini comics, make some ash cans, whatever. And just make your first comic and then make another one or make another one, keep finishing some small projects, some anthology
Yeah,
type things,
absolutely.
build up
Or
your skill.
yeah, it's like, I mean, I did. I've got so many comics that I've done over the years. I didn't start with Merry Boys or Sparko. I've
Mhm.
been hitting those self-published indie comics that self-release things for years and years and years. Just trying to learn, the skills.
Mm. Yeah.
And you need that foundation.
Yeah. And then, to your point as well, when you do feel, if you do feel like, this is something you want to market, this is something you want to do a crowdfunder for, then I think what Chubb was saying is right, perfect. I mean, when I make my comics, I'm always now, especially now, I'm always shooting for stuff that would, that you could find in a commercial market. It doesn't have to be perfect either. There's, look at Image Comics. There's a lot of rough around the edges types of art styles and stuff, but there's design in there, and there's, it's kind of intentionally, that way. There's a lot of styles that can be done that even if you're not, at the level of somebody like, Jim Lee or something, uh, you can still pass as a comic artist if even Mary Boys, for to example, it's more of a cartoony style. Not that that's a lesser style, because honestly, like Chubb was saying earlier, like knowing where to put those limited amount of lines is a very tricky thing. But a cartoony look, if you're not trying to do, you don't have to do like ultra realism or really perfect anatomy, is what I'm basically trying to say. You just have to be able to tell a story in a visually appealing way. There's a lot of gradation there that you can work with, but as a whole, as a product, try your best to make it look like something that could be on a comic shelf or on a store shelf or something.
Yeah, and yeah, don't limit yourself to the predominant style, like superhero stuff. I mean, there's a whole world of different kinds of comics out there, that are equally viable, and important.
Absolutely.
Playing to your strengths. That's the thing. That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And on that note, can once again let people know where they can find you, Chubb, and the book and stuff.
Sure. I think, yeah, the best place is the Twitter, Mary Boys One,
Hmm.
Mary Boys, one word, and then the number one, and there's a Facebook page that I monitor, that's got all the updates and things there, for people, where people want to know what's going on, and that'll all link back to the Indiegogo, where I sell everything from. Yeah, that's it. And
Awesome.
when we get organized, we'll have a better YouTube channel.
Awesome. And yeah, once again, the links for the all of that is down below in the description. So definitely check that out. Definitely subscribe to his YouTube, because he's going to get it going, and then he'll have some people to talk to. So that'll be really cool. And you guys know where to find me: donkeyjawprojects.com, and Marsh Comics on Twitter. Chubb, thanks for hanging out here. It was really fun. Good discussion, man.
Really appreciate it. Thanks very much. It was nice getting in depth about the comics. It was a good thorough discussion. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And you're welcome to come by anytime, even if you just want to come on the show, I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, sure. If you didn't, yeah, if you want, yeah. I mean, because this is a really good time. When do you typically? Because I mean, I see you upload stuff. I don't look at what time you normally stream. Is
Yeah,
it
it
typically
tends to be any time during the week. I usually, do it somewhere around like 9-ish or 8 or 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
Um, but I used to do a lot of morning ones, kind of like this too, and sometimes I'll do that as well. If you want, I'll add you to the Twitter message thing, so you'll get notified whenever I put one on and want people to come on and stuff. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the weekend morning ones are like, it's perfect for me. I don't have to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning sort of thing to do them. So yeah.
Yeah. I plan on incorporating that a little bit more because that's when I used to do it, is the morning. So, and I know that's a better time for people in the UK. Russ comes on, as you probably know, a lot, and
Yeah,
usually we
sure.
do that in the morning. So yeah, man, I'll add you to the Twitter thing, and thanks everybody who's hanging out in the chat and everybody watching on the replay and stuff. You guys rock. I really appreciate that. And other than that, we will talk to you on the next one. All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks,
Later.
guys. Thanks, chat. Take care.